worked at home and just chilled. And then I came in yesterday thinking, oh, I'm probably, because I always think with a cold, you kind of sometimes just have to keep moving.
Yeah, I'm the same.
To keep things, otherwise it all just settles, doesn't it? So I kind of got up, walked the dogs, and thought, right, I'll take them, come in. And about 4 o'clock like yesterday afternoon, I was just like, had a massive headache and sore throat, and I was like, oh my God.
It comes really quickly though, doesn't it? I was the same, because it's come and gone, and then, but it's the thing with this, whatever this virus bug that's been going around, and so many people had it, it's just taken so long to go.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of into fitness, and
same here.
I can see that you
and
keep
I do.
yourself
I'm
fit.
just like, because I'm like, I have loads of I do loads of classes. I love HIIT boot camps and all those.
Oh, do you? I like HIIT. Yeah.
Yes, and so I've got a new reason. I've got to cancel my class. I'm not going to make it. So I'm like, oh no.
I feel a bit like that, and I'm one more to keep on going.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, I'll just go for a run.
But I know, because it's in my chest as well. I know if it's in my head, I can cope. If it's just a bit in my chest, I know I'm just gonna, and then I'll hate myself because I'll think, no, I made it worse.
I wanted to talk to you about fitness actually. So before we get into that, maybe I'll kind of introduce the podcast and then we'll talk about that, because it's really super important to me. I think it's important in business as well.
Really
so
important, yeah.
Obviously, thank you so much, Tamara, for coming and being on my podcast.
Absolute pleasure.
I really appreciate it, because obviously you've never heard who I am or know who I am. So it's amazing when someone like yourself, accepts an invitation. So I really appreciate you doing it.
Oh no, absolutely.
Now I know a fair bit about Ridgeview, because I live in a road just around the corner from something called Ridgeway. So that's why I said Ridgeway. Ridgeview.
It's a common. There is a common sort of. That always happens. We always have people who obviously have affinity or something to the Ridgeway, and Ridgeway's got, and it happens a lot. So
it's not just me then. That's good. That's good. So I've done a little bit of research about Ridgeview, but I actually found out about Ridgeview through my niece, who works for Waitrose. She's a manager at Waitrose, and I was looking for. I said, I want to do some local businesses, entrepreneurs locally, Brighton, and she said, Ridgeview. Have you heard of Ridgeview? I said, that rings a bell. Why does that ring a bell? She said, sparkling wine. And I'm like, oh my God, I love sparkling wine. I must know this company. So I started to look into it. And I was just saying to Mardy, I've come backwards and forwards along this road a lot because my dad broke his hip.
Right.
And I've seen the estate driving backwards and forwards.
Yeah,
so, but that was the connection. And I looked it up and I thought, that'd be amazing to be able to have sort of 20 minutes, half an hour of your time, or whatever you can spare.
Yeah.
And she just said to me, it's a really good story, you should look it up. So I looked it up and I thought, brilliant, that would be perfect. And then, obviously, Ridgeview and yourself have won numerous amounts of awards.
Yeah.
And are really stand out in your field. So rather than me perhaps list off everything and your accomplishments, maybe you could introduce yourself and a bit about Ridgeview.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So I am Tamara, and I'm one of the family members who runs Ridgeview Wine Estate. It's a family business started in 1995 by my parents. My brother and I back then, and none of us were involved in the wine industry at the point of starting this business. It was very much an entrepreneurial idea by our father and mum, and we sort of over the last 25 years have my brother was slightly ahead of me, and then we all sort of started to gravitate into the business from all the other things we were doing, and it has been quite an exciting journey, and the focus of the business has always been sparkling wines in a traditional method. So we are for those of you not sort of aware of all the different methods of sparkling wine. There are quite a few. So the traditional method is where champagne sits. Most English sparkling wines, or 90% of English sparkling wines, are traditional method, and that means that each a fermentation happens in each and every bottle. So every bottle is individually created, and there is a very long period of process to create a traditional method. Typically, from harvest to getting a finished product on the shelf is about 3 years.
Oh wow!
So it's quite a long process. And it also suits and with champagne and English sparkling wines is in the growing in the cooler climate. So high acidity, low sugars. It's the climate and the geology of the area is very, very important for the wine as well. Which is why England has kind of been able to excel in this particular area, because we have both, which is both a godsend for the style of wine, but also can be make the growing season very, very difficult too, because cool climates are notoriously difficult to grow grapes in.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And that's where we focused for 25 years, and we've grown the business from the starting point of about 30,000 bottles to now getting close to 500,000.
Wow.
With growth plans over the next 3 years, which is our planning trajectory is around 5 years, if not longer. So we're constantly planning a 5-year cycle. So we started our this particular phase of growth has been going for a couple of years, with new growers coming on, etc. in the next couple of years. So we'll see. I think we'll probably get to around 750,000 in the next couple of years.
Wow, that sounds a lot.
It certainly sounds a lot when we started so small, and also in an industry that's still relatively niche, I would say, getting much more commercial, and there's a much more availability of English wine around, but still there's a lot, there's still, I think it's still very much in the southeast of England where you'll find the majority.
Really? Oh, okay.
And I think, London particularly, so we've still got quite a lot of work to do in the UK.
Yeah, sure. And do you think it's predominantly in the south? Is that because of the climate? Is that because
I think because that's where the wineries tend to be. So
right.
The growing happens in the vineyards are down here. It's just more visible.
Yeah.
And also, if you're a smaller producer and you're selling your wines, you're going to sell it either from your winery or the local restaurants, hotels, etc., just around you. So you're going to have areas around the winery which is going to be more sort of, the wine will be more available.
Sure.
And I think that's really nice, because it brings people into that local idea of you can go and visit your vineyard. It's just up the road. This is where it came from. It's just down there, and I think that's quite special, really.
No, I think that because you do that here, don't you? You do wine tasting,
and
people can come and visit, and I think maybe you've got some ideas of you to expand all of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think retail and tourism, particularly the tourism side, is a great opportunity, because where we are we're just sort of north of the South Downs, but our vista from our tasting room is the beautiful ridge of the South Downs, which is the Ridgeview name comes from that. It's a beautiful view, and what we find is we constantly sell out on our tours. Any events we put on, we're constantly selling out. So we just know that people are interested and enjoy it. It's a quite unique setting to be, because a lot of our events take place right next to the vineyards, etc. So there is a lovely setting. It's quite special.
Yeah, and people like that behind the scenes feel, don't they? As well, they want to see how it's done, how it's made, how it's produced. I have a friend who owns Brighton Gin, Kathy.
Yeah, I love Kathy.
Oh, yeah. And so she started doing stuff like that as well, because people want to know, don't they? They want to experience that.
And I think that's the thing, and and it's lovely to be able to share that, because actually then people go away having a lot more understanding of, because most of us will go and buy a bottle of wine on a shelf in a supermarket. You look at the label and you think, but actually, if you can get behind that a little bit and just see what happens, and understand, particularly around a product like ours, which is, we're retailing at £30 plus, so they're not cheap wines.
No.
Someone is making a considered investment when they're buying our wine, and usually it's to celebrate something, a moment or something like that in their life, and you've got to, and I think people need to kind of get a bit of an understanding. Once they've been here and they've seen the tour, I've had so many people going, I thought it was a bit pricey at first, but when I've been on the tour, actually I think it's really good value.
Well, they see what actually happens.
The work that goes into doing it, and I find that, and so that's nice.
People buy into that though, don't you think? I think that in a lot of businesses, it's that whole know, like and trust thing, isn't it? But they buy into the story and the brand and what's behind it. It's like me, I'm a coach, and I've only just gone into coaching. I've got a property business, but I really love helping people and developing people. And I've started to, I guess, put more of me out there rather than what I want people to see, because I think people buy into people, and if they have an understanding of what I've been through in order to be giving and delivering the messages and advice that I'm giving, then they're more likely to resonate with me. And I totally get it from your point of view, and now Kathy doing it with the gin, because her gin, I think it's about £30 odd a bottle. Again, it's a considered investment, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can buy a bottle of gin for £10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can buy some sparkling wine for, I love Prosecco, sorry. But, you can go and buy that for £6-7 quid. I don't look at it and think, oh, I know the story, I know the brand. But, when you go and do these tours and you know more what goes on behind the scenes, you are more open to spending a little bit more on it, because
you feel that
you feel connected to it.
That's right. It's that connection, and you feel that you've been given a view of something that perhaps is slightly more personal than just, like, say, visiting a shop, taking it off the shelf.
Especially when you buy, like, say, most people buy sparkling wine for an occasion.
That's right.
And to celebrate something. So if you've got an even more connection to it, I think you're more inclined.
Exactly.
To
you feel something, and you can talk about it, which is great. And I think that's the lovely thing about wine is that it's there for sharing, and it can be a talking point too, because if you are interested in wine, and a lot of people are interested in wine actually, to whatever degree you want to take it, because you can take it to quite a high level.
Yeah, I have a friend who's really interested.
But also you can take it, to a very low level of interest and those sorts of things. And just talking about where it's from, how you discovered it, and why you liked it with friends who are appreciating it, it's lovely.
No, it's nice, like I say, it's a sharing thing. But obviously you're a family business, which I really love. But also, when you think what the business was to begin with, just your parents and the entrepreneurial idea, do you think, was that their vision to make it, to become so big? Because obviously you're still trying to grow and keeping that kind of family element, I guess, to it, because you're a small team. How do you see that going and playing out? Because obviously, like you say, you're looking to expand 700,000 bottles, and
I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think so. If we roll back before Ridgeview, my parents had another business, which was a IT business, which they started in the 80s. Again, went really at the fledgling time of computing coming in, and took a big step. Dad left his job and started it from our lounge basically, and then had a shop, etc., and got into sort of IBM mainframes and those sorts of things, and built it up to about 500 people, and then moved out of the industry, and we saw the consolidation. So there's always been that kind of journey in the family. So we've been moving into the next thing was fairly. Wasn't weird. It was just like, oh, well, we're doing wine now.
That entrepreneurialism has always been there.
And the great thing I think particularly with my mum and dad, was that everything was in the planning and the thought process that went there. So before, there was a long journey to get to the point of them selling the other business to planting the first vines at Ridgeview. There was an idea of which was then built on and planned for, and lots of discussions with lots of experts, be over in France, over here, in order to then come to a decision in terms of what's the best direction to go to. So and then the land here was purchased as a deliberate part of
because it was a farm before, wasn't it?
It was a sheep. There was a few sheep on it. It was and a dilapidated shed, which is now our original winery at the top. But so it wasn't really being used for very much. So. So we were quite lucky to come across this place. It wasn't far from where we lived previously, so it was quite nice not to have to completely relocate and things like that. And it's been absolutely turned out as an ideal spot really for it. So I suppose when they first started, because it's a second career for my parents. They were, and Simon and I, my brother, were off doing totally different things. So I think when it first started, I think it was almost a case of, let's just see what happens. You know what I mean?
That's it,
and maybe in their heads it was something that they could run between the two of them as a sort of project.
Yeah.
If it was all right, fairly successful.
Yeah.
Or they could sell the wine from the cellar door, and they could do events and those sorts of things. But I think it quite quickly became apparent that there was a lot of interest in what we were doing.
Right, yeah.
And actually the wines that we were producing were actually really good.
Yeah.
And attracting attention not only from, local wine clubs and our local restaurants and those sorts of things, but also from national accounts such as Waitrose, national buyers,
Were they the first people to come on board?
Actually,
like
it was Laithwaite's. There's a wine specialist club, and
Right.
they run the Sunday Times Wine Club and their own wine group,
Yeah.
Laithwaite's, and they were the first to come to us. Tony Laithwaite and Hugh Johnson, who run that, and they wanted to almost take our entire first vintage.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, not a few years after, was Dee Blackstock, who was the buyer for Sparklings at Waitrose, who came along too. So both of those, it's nice to say, are still our customers.
Yeah,
so that's been a 20 year relationship, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And so then we started to win. There were national competitions and local competitions. We started to win awards there and get best in show and those sorts of things with our first releases of our wines. And then we thought, well, let's try it on the, and I think there was a Nye Timber at the time as well, who were owned by a American couple back then. We're also on the similar journey and getting the similar accolades. And almost between us, we were kind of one year winning one and then the other year winning the other. So we were constantly sort of getting the limelight in terms of, an English wine has won an international award. And I think the first sort of true trophy we won was at the International Wine and Spirits Competition in 2005 for one of our wines, our 2002 vintage wine. And we had queues at from our cellar, just all people just turning up queuing to come in and buy a bottle of this wine. It was quite something. And it was around then that we sort of sat down as a family and thought, well, there is obviously
a demand.
Yeah,
there's something.
What should we do? And I think because of that, the family were very engaged with the whole project. I mean, who wouldn't be? I was working in finance.
Yeah, you were in finance, weren't you?
Trundling up onto the train every day. I mean, who wouldn't think actually to come out of that rat race and to have your own business and to help the family, push that forward. So it wasn't a hard sell.
No. No, I can imagine it wouldn't have been for me either. Do you want to commute every day? Or do you want to family business?
And it was a struggle back then because obviously the business was still very small. So paying people, we weren't paid huge wages, and you make sacrifices in those ways and sort of scale back your life slightly to get the benefits. You look at the longer term benefits rather than what you're getting now. So we all all adapted to that. We're all very committed. I think that's quite testament to the family that we all were very committed.
It's not easy. I mean, for us, I know a few people that have family businesses. Or, I have a couple of clients that. Because I think that's the first thing you do in business is you pull your family in. It's like me, I need help. So my niece, who is a Waitrose manager, I'm saying, can you help with this podcast? So, you reach out to your family straight away, but actually working with family can be quite challenging. I mean, obviously you guys have made it work and work really well. Yeah, no,
exactly. And I think, there's... I wish there was a real good secret that I could share.
Oh, this was going to ask you.
What I really think it comes down to, and I think like anything, is good communication.
Yeah.
Talking.
Yeah, and not kind of chucking the baby out with the bathwater when something goes wrong. Calm communication about stuff. And I think also I think as we've got bigger, it's really important to have defined roles that people know, that we're not all, and we've been very lucky that we all kind of fit in our areas quite nicely. There's nobody, my brother and I weren't fighting to be the CEO or anything like that. It was quite natural for me to take that. Simon's very much more involved in the winemaking side of things. And he's happy with that role.
He loves it, and if I was to put him in front of a bank for finance, he would, it just wouldn't be his comfort zone. Put him in front of, masters of wine who are discussing the technicalities of winemaking. He's, that's his bread and butter, and that's absolutely how it should be. And I think we've always had those discussions as we've grown, and I've been pretty open about it. It's our business. What do you want to do? Which areas do you like doing? What do you enjoy doing? We can then build around those areas as we grow and understand. And it's always really difficult. We do need to understand your skills. And I think in business it happens quite a lot with people. The expectation is they should be able to do everything, and actually none of us can.
And that's so true. And they want it to be perfect. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have loads of ideas, and so they want to go and do all those ideas, but they also want to sort of have a lot of control as well. And you're right. I think there is this element that you have to become aware and self-aware enough to know, look, I'm not good at this.
No.
This this is something I can outsource, or I can find someone who's got better skills. The best use of my time is here. This is my strong point. This is what I'm good at. This is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I can focus on that and find other people that can do the other areas.
And that's where and I think that's the biggest learning really for any business that's growing is having that discipline to do that, because it's not easy.
No.
Because particularly when you start when you're small, you do a bit of everything.
Yeah, because you have to. Yeah, like it comes down to finances, and then you end up in this position of overwhelm.
Yeah.
And just this week, I've had a couple of clients message me in complete overwhelm because it's about cost. You know, you need to outsource and get help. This isn't your skill set. And you're literally juggling all of these balls trying. And I think
really
in the early stages, especially when you don't have the resources financially, that can be really, really tricky. But obviously, you guys were able to all pull together and make it work, which is amazing. Yeah. But going forward as a family and keeping it as obviously because it is a family business, it has a really strong history and a story, and you've got these plans for growth. And keeping that sort of,
I think that's where we are now is getting to the point where we know we're pushing on again, and I think for us that's always been it's a bit of a no-brainer. We're not going to stand still, and the business is too exciting to just sort of cull or stop.
Sort of go, well, this is where we want to be.
You know, and I also think that would certainly would lose some interest from me personally, because I really enjoy that whole aspect of the growth and those sorts of things. But it's not all about me. So the family, and I think that's the kind of, when you are thinking about a family business, is that a lot of the time the decision making is not just this. You have to take it. So you've got the business decision making, and you've got the family decision making, and sometimes, most of the time, that all works pretty well. But there will be times where you have to align different sort of requirements or things, and I've been very, very lucky that actually we've all been on the same page, and I haven't had someone go, actually, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
And then that would be quite difficult and awkward, but you have to listen, and you have to, sometimes it goes, well, maybe not now, maybe in whatever. So you can, there are certain areas where there is a bit of, toing and froing, but on the whole, we've all been on the same page. So,
you've all had the same sort of vision.
Yeah.
You're happy to sort of all go, take
exactly.
your roles and go with that and make them your own. Which maybe that's probably one of the main reasons it's been so successful, because you all clearly have got real strengths in certain areas, like your brother and your role. And do you think that's probably one of the, obviously the wine is amazing, I'm not trying to detract from the wine, but having a successful business and running it as a family is that you know your roles, and you are really good at your roles. You really know that this is my strong point, and you embrace it, and you want to really push on in the role that you each assume. Yeah, no, exactly. But those roles have changed dramatically over for all of us. So, and there's you spend as you grow, because your role, as you like you say, you start with a bit of a jack of all trade, and then gradually that gets too much, so you have to shed. And then you get bits too much, and then that has to be shedded. Then I started taking over, because I'm finance background, so I've been doing FD and the CEO of for a few years, particularly after my dad passed away in 2014, assuming both full responsibility of both of those jobs. Well, that's just too much, So I've now got a finance manager in to take some of the load off that. I've got someone coming up in to become general manager to take that step. So you constantly have to look at there's sort of that idea of what you need to do, but you can't do everything yourself. Exactly, and that trust you have to build with people, and that's hard. I mean, it's hard because you build the trust, and if people don't stay with you forever, sometimes that's
do.
hard. That can be hard. I can imagine that.
People have their own requirements. So I'm pretty keen. We have a good development program with people, particularly here, just so that we really get to know our staff and understand what drives them, and where their interests are and everything else, because it doesn't stop people from leaving, but it gives you the warning signs that actually their interests are kind of going over in this direction, and I'm not going to be able to satisfy that. So you've got to let them go, do their thing, and that you've got to you've got the time, and it makes that whole side of things much more open. I think, and I have no problem with someone saying to me, do you know what, I'm not enjoying this. This isn't kind of where fine.
Yeah.
If I can't find something that fits for them, then I'll help them find something, you know.
Oh, that's amazing.
But you would.
Yeah, well, I
they're
don't
good
know.
people.
Not. Well, you are good people, yeah, but not
I mean,
all
no.
businesses run like that.
No.
I mean, I'd like to think a lot of family businesses run like that, but I think.
I think there's a fear element with that. But the more you, and I've found the more you try and hold on to things,
Yeah.
the more likely you are they're gonna just go.
You've got to remain flexible and adaptable. It's one of the things I talk about a lot. Yeah.
Stuff, and you just have to let it go.
Yeah, I think if you're rigid in your thinking and your processes, I think in the end that snaps.
Yes.
You have to be flexible and adaptable and bend with the wind, and obviously try and do whatever you can to support.
And you will still get curveballs.
Yeah.
You will still get stuff that you could never have possibly imagined coming your way. And like you say, if you're kind of tensely sort of that makes that even more difficult. If you're slightly more, you can just go with it and go, oh, okay, right, it's another. And I quite like a challenge.
You've got to. I can imagine running a business like this. You know, you must love a challenge because it's problem solving, firefighting, sometimes maybe dealing with staff, dealing with all different things.
And I think and when you come back to that resource thing, is that when that sort of firefighting is just becoming every day, then you know your resources, your balance isn't right, and you need the resource to bring in. And it is, I think it's the toughest decision for any business, is particularly when you're growing, when you're perhaps, you know, the cash flow's tight, and you know, lending can be difficult at times. I think one of the fortunate things for us is that we're quite capital heavy, so we have the security there for banks to lend against, which has helped enormously with the growth. Whereas I think, you know, for some other service industries, things like that can be very, very difficult to get the finance in order for people and resource that the business needs, and I think that's very, very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you think, was your kind of career path, was it kind of mapped out at the beginning? It's like, I'm in finance, never saw yourself sort of coming into this business, was it?
Yeah, no,
I mean, it wasn't a hard decision by the sounds of it, but I guess for you were like, were you an accountant?
Yeah, so I was I did my chartered account, so I did a law degree and thought, don't really fancy a career in law, so then I switched over to chartered accountancy, and actually, although the sort of the boring side of accountants does sort of come to mind, it's not something I sort of say, I'm an accountant.
This is going to be fun.
I'm CEO of Ridgeview, and don't worry about the accounting side. Everyone likes wine, so we're fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sparkling wine, brilliant.
Exactly, it's much better. But actually, I've found, I suppose in a way by doing that, I found I'm actually very, in that way, that sort of, I can do that quite well. It's an area I find interesting, challenging, but also I'm pretty capable at it too. So I'm quite strategic in how I think. I wouldn't say I was like the best person in the maths class or anything like that. And I don't think you need to be for finance and accounting. It's more of a strategy and an understanding of how everything fits together. Sure. It's more problem solving actually, more than anything. It's quite
you're a problem solver.
Yeah. I love a problem.
Do you?
I don't. But then I suppose I never approach things. I like finding a solution. I don't ever look at it as a problem. I go, right, okay,
what's the solution?
How do we get this sorted? Because,
exactly.
And that's the way you've got to be, I think, is because if you every problem came your way and you were like, oh, it's a problem, you'd never get anywhere, would you?
Absolutely, you'd go into meltdown and burn out or whatever. And that's how I address it, and address it with clients. It's like, okay, so let's look for the solutions. What do we need to pull in? What skills have we got? What resources do we need to find? What can you do? What can't you do? More importantly, probably. So I totally get that. But I would like to, obviously, you won Sussex Business Person of the Year last year, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was really, really pleased with that. I mean, it's, there's, you don't expect, you never go into these and expect to win, but you have to enter to win something. So obviously we entered. It was just really nice to see, firstly that that all the work that you've done in the last has been recognised.
Yeah, of course.
And amongst peers, and not just because you enter female-only competitions, etc. But it's nice to be judged against everyone.
Everybody level playing field. Yeah.
And actually still come out on top. I was really, really pleased with that.
Yeah, it was, congratulations.
Thank you.
Out of all the awards though that you've won as a business and obviously the Business Person of the Year, which one means the most to you?
I think for me personally, it was a couple of years ago when we won the Winemaker of the Year at the International Wine and Spirits Competition.
Right.
And the reason for that is actually it was really testament to my brother and I, because at that point my father had passed away. The wine that won that award was made 100% by my brother.
Right.
The business and everything else that we'd done was all to do with just us, running that business and taking forward. So it just, for me, was like a massive pat on the back.
Yeah.
For us as second generation coming in, and we can still, because the last time we won that award, which is in a slightly different, was with Dad won it in 2005, and it was his favourite award ceremony and favourite competition. So again, that had a resonance. Also, it was on the anniversary of his death, which was quite bizarre too.
Yeah.
But it was to have your wine judged above all the other wines in that competition globally. It's a global competition with wines from all over the world. Is actually quite surreal.
Incredible. I can understand.
You're kind of like, oh my God, we are the best here, and you think. And I think us English Brits are all very sort of self-deprecating occasionally, aren't we? We never kind of do that yeehaw, we're the best type thing, and I think that's so you never so you always think, oh, I wonder if we could win this, and then all of a sudden your name's called out.
That's a Brit thing, isn't it? We're like,
we
yeah, it's like we can't celebrate the wins.
I think we're being slightly ostentatious. You mustn't be too.
I'd be bragging. I would honestly be bragging if I won anything.
Isn't it?
I won a teacup.
We have this kind of weird, inability within us
to celebrate. I know, it is celebrate the wins. I always say celebrate the wins, but we do. I think we.
But then we dwell on the losses and the bad things forever, and you're like, oh, for God's sake, move on.
Yeah, you need to get rid of that shit. Sorry, I swear. I mean, you've used quite a bit of time, and I'm really sorry. I don't want to keep you too long because obviously you're super busy. But the business has been going 25 years now. Yeah. So have you got special plans for the 25th anniversary? Or?
Yeah, we just have. We've got kind of a number of different things happening. We're kind of formally opening. We built we invested about 1.8 million last year in a new winery and cellar facilities and infrastructure on the site. So we're having a formal opening party of that for, I would say, more friends and suppliers and the people who have helped us get to that point.
Right.
Then we've got quite a few events up in London, some consumer focused, others trade focused in terms of tastings of our archive wines, etc. We've got a festival we have every year.
Cool. I'm going to have to come to it. It's here, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So in the August bank holiday weekend. So we're kind of making that bigger and better for our 25th anniversary. And we have live music, a silent disco, we have food stands, and it's just chilled, lots of fun.
Sounds brilliant.
All day. I think it finishes. It's a midday to 9 p.m. So it's nice, reasonable hours. Nothing too
social hours.
Social hours. And I think we've got about 750 or something, 900 people, and we had about 600 last year. So
it's growing every year.
Yeah. So I think there's probably a few other things coming towards the end of the year that are just being ironed out. So I think what we've tried to do is keep touch points throughout the year rather than having one big event.
Right.
So that we're constantly telling it, and we're launching our sort of a brand awareness campaign as well about Ridgeview and moments that matter, etc.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will be more visible around, particularly around Brighton, the southeast. That's a very nice corner of the southeast. Mainly just to focus on getting consumer awareness really of the brand. We're pretty well known in the trade, and we've got good relationships there. And for us, the next step is to get that consumer demand swell back in, so people are talking about us and asking for us when they go into their restaurants and their local places. Have you got Ridgeview?
Yeah.
I've seen that. It looks amazing.
And that's really super important, isn't it? I mean, I know we do it, and with the gin. I mean, I don't drink gin, but I've got a couple of friends who do. And whenever we go anywhere, the first thing, especially one of my friends, Karen, she will always say, "Oh, do you have, gonna have a gin? Do you have Brighton gin?" She'll always do that because she's got that awareness. And
exactly.
It's our friend. She likes the gin, and obviously, so
and
that's
it's really important to
important.
get in people's psyche, and when they think, they've got Spice. You've got Ridgeview.
Yeah.
I mean, and particularly, and that will then help for us, to drive demand back to to us through the trade, etc. So you know, it's just moving us into a new platform. And I think that's where I see when we were talking earlier about what the next few years, I think we're going to, you know, the investment in promotion is probably going to get quite significant,
right?
Because there's much more competition out there.
Yeah.
But it's telling our story. We've got a great story. Yeah. And it's storytelling for us, but to a slightly different channel to where we have been, and spreading that message wider than perhaps where it is right now. Because I think when people find us, they are quite loyal to us.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's just getting people to find us is the key thing.
Getting that message out there to more consumers.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. I love it. A couple of things that I really want to try and get in.
Sure.
You work in, obviously, from what I've read, quite a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
How has that played out over the years? And I know you've taken on a new role, isn't it? I'm trying to just check on
I've got a couple of board roles. So at the moment,
how's that played out?
I work on, so we have a trade body, Wines GB, so I'm on the board for there. Also the Wines and Spirits Trade Association, which is a national association for all drinks.
Right.
So I also joined the board there as a wine member. But then I'm also the president of the International Wine and Spirits Competition.
Is that the new one? Is that the new role?
Yeah,
I
this
saw
is
that.
my role this year. So, and if in fact we've got a meeting after this just to go through what that looks like for the year. Yes, it is quite male dominated, and you know, it is frustrating sometimes because I do think, personally, I think female voices in a senior management situation on a board, we're kind of calm.
Yeah.
We take things in and we bring something there, and it's not just all of the same stuff that you hear, and I think we do come from things in a slightly different way, and encouraging people, and I don't have the answers how we bring people through and do it. I try my hardest here with mentoring and various other bits and pieces, if I see, you know, to really be as equal as I can with people. And in fact, I think we thought slightly skewed towards more females than males.
I've seen your sort of breakdown of your
but that's not been a deliberate thing. It's just been, I've found some really good women. They all work, and maybe because I'm a female thing, it makes it easier because I understand the pressures and can be much more flexible than perhaps other other bosses are. I think you know, the whole workplace doesn't need to be how it is. No. It could be a lot more flexible. We could work much more flexibly, and we just don't trust, perhaps.
Right.
I don't know what it is, why, you know, because there's such a wealth of experience and investment in people that could actually bring much more to any organisation, but we kind of have this rigidity of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I don't know. Why? It's historic.
Because it's how it has been.
And because it suits a certain side of the gender profile.
Yeah, probably.
You know what I mean? It suits them, and they're fine with it. And it creates a barrier to entry and barriers around it. And until we start really, we almost want to just rip it all up and start again. I know that's not possible, but it's in smaller businesses it can be.
Have you found it, obviously being, you know, in this industry and being female and taking on a senior role, I mean, do you feel, how does that affect, do you think it has impacted in your opportunities? It doesn't sound like it, because it sounds like obviously the business has done tremendously well, and you've obviously won awards and sitting on boards. Has it had a detrimental effect on it? Do you feel like has there been any sort of experiences of sexism or anything like that?
I think there is always a situation when you're, I don't know whether it's terms you come out with my husband or with a male colleague or something like that, and you're in a business, they tend to talk to them. They tend to think that's where they're going to get the answers. And my husband found that most amusing because they're asking all the business, and he's like, no idea.
It's all her.
But you know, there is that sort of you do get those kind of strange things, and also I think, like anything, you build trust with people, don't you? And you listen. I'm a good listener. I don't go into situations all sort of guns blazing. I know it all. That's not me. I will listen. I'll listen and listen, and then I'll just put in the odd. Well, what about this? What about that? And I think if and that's not. I don't think that's necessarily. But I think I've never been particularly in the board situation where I've had anything uncomfortable said to me or anything like that. But along the way, there are definitely times where you're thinking, well, back in my old career and things like that, and I've seen it in those sorts of things. And I've had plenty of situations where I've seen sort of in a team that all the guys getting a certain perk and the girl not. And I have actually gone and raised that with my partner at my old accountancy firm. I said, well, I don't really understand. I wasn't even in the team. I saw it happening.
But you saw it happen and didn't
I'm like,
stand
well,
by
I don't really get why that's happened. Can you explain it to me? Because to me, it just seems completely wrong. She's worked really, really hard. They have. Why did she not get the same benefits? Probably that's a pretty good reason why I left that. I can't sit back and not ask the questions when those things happen. I will ask.
A lot of people will though. They stand by and just sit back.
Even if it's not me, I just why? Well, it's not fair. I suppose I do have that. I have a sort of, I must have the fairness gene in me. I like things to be fair.
Yeah, well that's great for the roles that you've now got going forward on the boards and that. It's there's certainly going to be fairness in there for sure.
Exactly.
So what does a day in the life of Tamara Roberts looks like? It sounds like it's quite varied if you've got all these boards and
it can
things.
be. I mean,
what's a typical day like for you?
Podcast in the morning.
We were talking about exercise earlier on. Is that because for me, I have a morning routine, and I've done that for years, and I've adapted it throughout the years. And certainly clients that I take on, I encourage them to try and get some kind of routines and habits because I think they work. They do benefit you greatly in terms of what you can achieve and things. And part of mine is exercise, and I encourage my clients to do that. Not necessarily, because I always say exercise benefits you mentally way before it will before you'll see the signs physically, in terms of mood and productivity and your alertness and all of that. And I know we had a brief conversation about that. So do you have a morning routine as part of your day, or is it?
I have, because we start quite early. We start at 8 and we finish at 4:30. So I have a kind of the morning routine tends to be, we've got 2 dogs, so we walk the dogs. I take my husband and I do alternate days really. I walk the dogs, kids to school. Then I tend to do at least 3 times a week some sort of fitness side of it. I'm pretty diligent about that. I don't like stuff
very disciplined,
getting in the way. And I will clear my diary if I need to. I will turn down events and things like that because I think, no, that's my night of doing this. And I think, I try to do something 3 times a week. I quite enjoy boot camps, HIITs, boxing classes. I run a bit. I haven't run for a while, so I'm thinking I might go back into running. We did a half marathon last year for the Benevolent. So I got the team at work, we've got a team from work to go and do that. I think for me, and I agree, I think actually it's been on my mind actually to try and do more with, to encourage people in the business to do it too. Because I completely agree, once, you can go into a fitness class or whatever, feeling like the world's on top of your shoulders, you don't know where to turn next, and you walk out of that feeling $1 million, and you feel like, oh, that was it. Your mind is clear because you've just 100% focused on probably the pain of what you're doing. But you've just almost exercised out those negativity that sits on your shoulders sometimes that you go there, and it is, for me, I know, like I said, we both have a cold at the moment. I find that very frustrating because I'm sitting there going,
I just want
to go and because everything builds on you, doesn't it? And you haven't got that release.
Absolutely, and it is a release, and it's really good to hear that you kind of don't let it. It's in your diary, and you'll push things aside. And I think that's really important. And again, another thing that I do with my clients is compartmentalise your diary. You start off and you put in the necessary things, and for me, exercise is one of those things. Obviously, time with your partner or whatever. It sounds a bit boring, and you don't really want to diarise the fact that you're going to have a Tuesday night date night with your partner, but it's super important because when you're trying to build a business, or you have a business, or you're entrepreneurial, other things will creep in, and then that will all just fall by the wayside, and you have to put them in, and they're rigid and they don't get moved.
Super important, and I do that, all the time. Each week I plan. I can be quite flexible, but tend to plan a couple of weeks ahead for those sorts of things. And I get everything in the diary in my private thing, so people know they can't do it because people put stuff in my diary now.
Of course, exactly.
And all of a sudden you've got invites coming in there. But if you've planned out when you're not available, I put stuff I've got to do with the family. I put everything in my work diary because then I know people aren't going to Or they're going to have to ask me
Yeah.
before they just assume that I'm going to go.
Because I think it becomes very easy to be just 100%. This is work.
And also you become less effective because you just don't have that downtime to reflect and come back to something. If you're constantly on it and you get ill, if you don't look after yourself, the most important person in that business, if you're an entrepreneur, is you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not well, or if you're not performing, then so for me, health, fitness, and those sorts of things are as important as meeting the bank, they are critical in terms of keeping everything in balance.
Absolutely, it's nice to hear you say that, because that's sort of my message. Personal development leads to business development, and as part of that personal development is your self-care and taking care of yourself. Because if you're not as good as you can be, then you can't give to your employees and your staff and to your business the best that you can bring.
No, exactly.
So for me, always when I'm working with people, that's my focus. It's like, no, it starts with you.
Yeah.
What I want to do. No. We come back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Understand yourself. Understand how important it is to take care of yourself and your health and your mindset. Because obviously, mindset is everything, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And health plays a big part.
And I think, like you say, exercise for certain people will be completely different each way, and it's going for a long walk.
Yeah.
If you've got
brisk walk
or running, or
so many things you can do.
There's just so many things you can do, but it's making the time for it. It's really important.
Yeah, it just has to go in there. I think one of the things with sort of running and exercise I find is it's like when your body's busy and you're doing stuff like that, it kind of calms the mind.
Yeah.
It kind of, it just, you like say you go into maybe a spin class or whatever, and you're focused on that and the pain. But I kind of like that in a way. I like that challenge that I get in the gym or at a spin class. And,
and I think that's the thing. Most of us in this role are relatively competitive people. So actually being competitive with your body and mind, that is actually quite a good thing to do, because you're pushing yourself again.
Yeah, and it's a tool that you can filters in. Yeah, and you filters into your other areas of your life, doesn't it? Well, I find it does anyway. It's like I've challenged myself in the gym, and and it's a mental game a lot of the time, and I think that makes you stronger for other areas of your life, and it just filters across. So. Yeah,
no, we're on the same page.
Brilliant. Right, I've nearly taken up too much of your time, so I wanted to ask you what was sort of your biggest challenge and your biggest triumph. Maybe the triumph we probably covered with the award. Yeah. But what do you think sort of over the years has been your biggest challenge, and how have you how did you manage it? How did you get through it?
Well, I think it has to be the transition from obviously being my father passed away. Our dad passed away in 2014. It was relatively sudden, and I think that transition between coming from having although I was pretty much running the business, and you always had sort of my mentor, and he was very, very close. We were very, very close, we worked super well together on business. Great dad, had a great relationship. We were great friends, and sort of all of that just suddenly gone. And then you realise, oh my God, I've got all of this, and I've got all these employees, and there's a lot. There was no time just to go, I feel sad or whatever. You just kind of have to go, I've got to get on with it. I've now got to keep everyone going. I've got to make sure that we keep the business on the road.
Time,
and it was really, and I found that quite difficult to find the time. And probably for that reason, that grieving process did go on for it. But then I did find a lot of comfort in doing the business side, because I kind of felt that was what he wanted as well. You know what I mean? It was kind of that. I felt actually we saw through his, because we finished the 5-year plan, and we've literally just got to the end of it, and we've achieved it.
Brilliant.
So you kind of, for me, that's almost that cathartic thing, is I feel just kind of slightly elated by that fact that we made a plan together. Unfortunately, he couldn't, but we've done it. We've done it. And
was that, obviously when your father passed, were you sort of almost, was it like you were overwhelmed with taking on sole responsibility? You didn't have that sort of...
Yeah, you do, and you get the imposter syndrome. You kind of feel, am I worthy? He was the man. He was the big man. He was Ridgeview. Ridgeview and Mike Roberts were synonymous, really. And although I was definitely a very good number, two in the business, and I was working really, together we were sort of really pushing forward. And you do get those moments of like, oh my God, I'm not him though.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I don't have that many moments of doubt really, which I suppose I'm lucky to have. I don't.
That's great.
I suppose I don't have a necessity. I don't feel like I need to please everyone. I've never felt like that. I've never felt that people can really take me or leave me.
I think that's really important for entrepreneurs. You can take that.
I certainly wouldn't go out of my way to upset anybody or do anything. I think I'm relatively quite a nice person. But I don't need people to like me. It's not a desperate thing for me.
I think a lot of people in business and in general, we want to be liked, don't we?
Yeah.
We want people to like us, but you have to accept that it doesn't matter. Your greatest thing,
I've got
somebody's going to love you about you, but
Yeah.
actually somebody also will hate that about you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like most things, isn't it? But you find a way to rub along with most people, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think those were the moments where I was just thinking, and I did have a few sort of, when initially it's like how long, there was sort of going about the legacy side of things. But actually we need to kind of move on as well. We can't be talking about Dad all the time, otherwise we don't look like we have a leader or moving forward. So I did kind of obviously step into that position. It was a natural step. I'd already been put into the CEO role anyway, so it was a bit of a baptism by fire. But in a way also it was a clean break too, so it could have been fortunate in that. I hate to say that, but you know what I mean.
But every downside has an upside.
You know what I mean. There was a definite chat, and there was no sort of, oh, I'll just go and ask your dad if they didn't like what I said. It's kind of like, as you do, when
well, it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't get the answer I want,
so I got the chain.
So
there was, it did that. So that was probably for me one of the more difficult, challenging moments because, and also at that time as well, the banking. We were with a particular high street bank who then decided they didn't want to fund us anymore. Almost immediately after that point, and I had to go and find additional funding. So it was I think for 2 years at least, I was probably at my most stressed, but I kind of was resilient too. And I think that's where you dig deep and that resilience comes through. And that's when the family support's really, really important. And I think it was at that point that I really opened up to the family just how much was going on, because a lot of the time I was quite protective so that they didn't see quite, particularly my mum and things like that, just what it was coming to, because I was like, and actually that was the wrong decision, and I'm really pleased I came to open, actually sit them down and go, this is where I am, this is not a good place, I've got all this stuff going on and I'm not coping very well. And it's hard to say that sometimes.
It is very hard, and it's really, again, it's something I talk to a lot of people about in business. When you're not coping, when you're stressed, and when we don't want to seem weak, we feel embarrassed or shamed that actually we're struggling. When you're seen as a strong person, like in my family, I'm probably seen as a strong one. I'm seen as the one that goes and gets things done. And resourceful.
You are that person.
So when you
person
struggle,
who sorts people's problems out and does all that stuff.
And when you struggle, it's hard, and I felt it myself. And you're just like, I actually want to say that I'm struggling.
And then and by doing it, oh my God, I felt so much better.
Sure.
And the rallying, and although they couldn't take the stuff away from me, they could ask me and talk to me and make sure I was okay and just check in, just say, and be understanding of perhaps if I was not in a great place, or they would just protect me a little bit from perhaps other stuff coming in.
Having that awareness of knowing how
so and so that was a good lesson for me really, and I'm so pleased I had to get to quite a low point to do it,
but you got there.
And I got there, and that's so.
But now I guess maybe going forward you wouldn't allow yourself to get to that point, because you know it's okay to share.
And also they will ask me all the time. So
it's good. It's a good message to give, I think, to a lot of business people, that it's okay to say that's not okay. If you're not okay,
particularly when you're and I think that's the thing. I think a lot of the time we are supposed to be the strong front and be able to take everything and manage everything, and that's kind of where you need to be, but we're not here superhuman.
None of us are perfect. We're all flawed, and we're not robots. So we're going to struggle at some point.
Exactly.
It's just how having that ability to put your hand up and go, yeah, you know what, I need
It's
some
not
help.
working,
Yeah, I need some
not
help.
good. Yeah.
Cool, thank you for sharing that. I really
That's
appreciate
right.
that. Right, I'm going to finish up because I've taken up way too much of your time. And I normally just finish on a little couple of cheeky questions. It's called some cheeky fours. It's just 4 things. So how would you describe yourself in 4 words?
I think the first one, definitely determined. I've always been called determined. Resilient. Fun. I love fun.
Yeah, me too.
And observant.
Ah, okay. So determined, resilient, fun. What's it? Observant. Okay, I like that. Next one. Would you rather have? I think I probably know the answer to this. Would you rather have £40 a day or 4 pieces of good advice a day?
4 pieces of good advice. Yeah, advice every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what can you never know what you can do with that. What are 4 things you can't live without?
Wine.
I haven't even asked you how much wine you drink yet. That should have been on the list.
A lovely glass of wine I'd struggle to be without. My family, I would, I wouldn't, I'm not, I'd struggle without them. My dogs, but I do know that they have, I love my dogs. I've got 2 border terriers.
My dog was recently put down.
Yeah, I know, that's what I mean, and I've got a very old one.
It's hard, yeah, really tough.
I think I love the dogs because of the joy they bring, and also the outdoors that comes with it.
Just there as well, aren't they?
And they can talk to them, and they can't talk back to you, which is
it's great. They're just there. They know when you're sad. They know when you're happy. If you're going to take them for a walk, they're super excited. They're just the little things.
Yeah, exactly. And what's my exercise?
Okay,
Yeah,
that's a good
I
one.
couldn't live
That's a
without
good one. Okay, and finally, what 4 goals do you want to achieve by the end of the year?
Ooh, crikey.
You must be a planner and a goal setter.
I am, yeah. So by the end of this year, I suppose, that's a good question actually. I've got so many different things. I think to get to have a really successful. Are talking business goals or personal goals? Both.
Well, we'll just go with both. Yeah.
Yeah. So personally, for me, personal goals. I've kind of got halfway there, but I want to have. I've got my finance manager now in place. I've got an operations manager I want to bring into a general manager role. So I want to get to a point where I'm not constantly trying to work weekends, which has been quite recent. I want to be really strict on the downtime and being, not just being kind of off, but being in the zone for the family, not having too much in my mind.
Yeah, because that's quite challenging, isn't it? Or it can be, to step away and be in family time and be completely in family time and not have what's going on at work in your head.
Where I'd like to be this year towards the end, and I've made some steps towards that, so I think I'll get there. So that's quite important to me, to be truly there in all times and be able to step away and step back in. I would like to have given I've got my International Wine and Spirits Competition presidency this year, so there's a big speech at the end of the year. I want to nail that speech. So I'm going to be doing some work with a speech coach and various other things to get so that I can nail that speech, because standing up in front of 500 people, I'm
scary,
really
but good.
That I'm going to deliver.
I imagine you've done a few speeches in your time.
Yeah, but this one is quite special.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah,
then for the business, and I think for the wider business, is that this year's kind of a consolidation year. We did a lot of work last year, lots of building works. We've got a lot of big planning this planning year, so we've got planning for some more reorganisation of production facilities and retail. I'd like to, by the end of the year, have a good plan as to know where we're going with that, and the costings and everything sorted, ready for the following year. And then also I'm just trying to think what my 4th goal is. Gosh, isn't it hard when you think I've got so funny, isn't it?
On the spot,
I do have goals, but I don't. It's funny, I haven't actually sort of gone through and documented them.
And I'm giving you like 30 seconds to think, what 4 things do I want to achieve by the end of the year? I mean, for me, I know about.
And also, I think to make sure that I keep, that for me, the family within the business are content continually contend for me is always quite an important thing for me, is to make sure that we keep all that tight knitness together. So that's another goal for me. But that's a rolling goal. I do that every year.
Yeah.
But it's an important thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's important that you're all happy within what you're doing, which it seems like you have a fantastic business. It's been a privilege to actually come here and meet you and,
really nice
see the
Thank
business.
you.
I shall certainly be going to buy some of your wine.
Lovely.
And test it out. Thank you very much for spending an hour of your time with me today.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank
Tamara.
you.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Let's stop this.